On November 6, the U.S. Department of State officially lifted the arms embargo on Cambodia. After 38 years under the Hun Sen family's rule, Cambodia has begun to distance itself from close alignment with the Chinese Communist Party. In recent decades, the Cambodian government took on around $20 billion in debt to China in exchange for major infrastructure projects, including the port in Sihanouk Noakville, a new airport in Phnom Penh, and development at the Ream Naval Base. Cambodia repeatedly used its influence in ASEAN to block criticism of China's actions in the South China Sea. Certain areas in Sihanoukville also became centers for criminal activities linked to Chinese networks. In 2025, however, Cambodia quickly changed course. Within months, it stopped automatically supporting Beijing's positions on the international stage. At the 2025 APEC summit, Cambodia stayed neutral and did not speak in defense of China's claim in the South China Sea. Within ASEAN, it moved from being Beijing's strongest ally to adopting a more balanced position. The country now actively engages the US, Japan, India, and Australia to build broader relationships. The clearest sign of this shift came when Prime Minister Hun Manet visited Washington, Tokyo, and Canberra this year, trips that would have been unthinkable under his father's leadership, when high-level visits almost always went to Beijing. By reaching out to multiple powers, Cambodia has gained greater diplomatic independence. It is no longer tied to any single partner. Military ties have changed even more dramatically. For years, Cambodia's armed forces relied almost entirely on Chinese equipment and training, including tanks, warships, and missiles. Now the U.S. has removed all restrictions on arms sales and is expanding places for Cambodian officers at institutions such as West Point and the Air Force Academy. Beginning in November, a permanent U.S. military advisory team is working in Phnom Penh. The Encore Sentinel joint exercise with the U.S., suspended for 8 years, will resume in 2026. Cambodia will also receive NATO standard training, move towards an English-language command system, and gain access to advanced precision-guided weapons. In the coming years, it may acquire U.S. communication systems, drones, patrol boats, and light armored vehicles. For the first time, Cambodia has been invited to participate in the Rim of the Pacific exercises. In the coming months, Cambodia's military will significantly expand its international partnerships and improve its combat capability, effectively advancing by 5 to 10 years in a short time. What Beijing once viewed as a reliable partner is now moving quickly towards closer ties with the U.S. Although China has long been Cambodia's largest trading partner and investor, with more than $20 billion committed, the U.S. remains the country's primary export market. For years, from 2010 to 2024, China worked to build a strong strategic position in Southeast Asia, especially around the South China Sea and the Mekong region. Cambodia served as a key element in that effort and often supported Beijing's positions in international forums. Yet this alignment had a critical weakness. Cambodia's economy depends far more on access to Western markets than on China itself. In 2024, Cambodia's total trade with China reached $15.1 billion, of which $13.4 billion were imports from China. By contrast, Cambodia exported $9.9 billion to the U.S., an amount equal to nearly 20% of the country's GDP. Cambodia's economic model relies heavily on its position as a re-export trade hub, where low-cost goods from China enter the country and are then processed and repackaged before heading to the U.S. Items like clothing, electronic components, and machinery arrive from China, receive minimal changes, and get labeled as made in Cambodia. This allows them to qualify for favorable trade terms from the EU and the US, offering zero or low tariffs on exports to those markets. According to data from US Customs, more than 60% of the raw materials and semi-finished products used in Cambodia's 2024 exports of clothing, footwear, and travel bags to the US came from China. In April this year, President Trump signed an executive order that imposed a 49% tariff on 14 categories of Cambodian goods, including garments, footwear, and travel items. This rate matched the combined 25% and 24% tariffs already in place on similar goods from China. The move came because Cambodia had become the main route for Chinese products to dodge U.S. tariffs, which the administration saw as a direct threat to American workers and manufacturing. For the first time, the Trump administration viewed Cambodia openly as an extension of China's economy. The 49% tariff threatened to eliminate most profits from Cambodia's exports to the U.S. The country faced a tough choice: keep acting as a hub for Chinese goods and risk losing U.S. market access, or enforce strict rules on product origins and lose Chinese investment along with affordable raw materials. Just as Cambodia felt trapped, the border conflict with Thailand in July provided the U.S. with a chance to shift the balance of power in Southeast Asia. After the conflict broke out, the CCP's mediation failed after 6 months, but the U.S. quickly facilitated a ceasefire through a phone call from Trump and shuttle diplomacy. Grateful for this, the Cambodian Prime Minister publicly nominated Trump for the Nobel Peace Prize, praising Trump's personal diplomatic skills and signaling that Cambodia had, at a critical moment, clearly realized who the true savior was. A survey by the Asia Foundation in October showed that only 42% of Cambodians aged 18 to 35 hold a favorable view of China, down from 68% in 2022. This sharp decline suggests that years of Chinese public diplomacy efforts in the country are losing ground. Growing public frustration at the grassroots level has coincided with a broader U.S. push to strengthen its position in Southeast Asia. American forces have resumed rotation at Subic Bay in the Philippines, begun joint patrols from Cam Ranh Bay in Vietnam, and secured agreements for future U.S. Navy visits to Cambodia's Ream Naval Base. Taken together, these moves represent the strongest and most sustained pressure on Chinese influence in the South China Sea and Indochina Peninsula during President Trump's second term. Much of the public anger in Cambodia has centered on the Belt and Road Initiative projects. The most prominent example is the Dara Sakor development in Ko Kong Province, awarded in 2008 to China's state-owned Tianjin United Development Group. The project eventually covered 90,000 hectares of coastal land under a 99-year lease, with a planned investment of $3.8 billion. It includes a deepwater port, an international airport, and a luxury resort. More than 1,166 households, roughly 5,000 people, many of them indigenous fishermen, were displaced, often receiving only a few $1,000s per family or replacement land of lower quality. Located inside Botom Sakor National Park, the project led to widespread clearing of mangroves and construction of a runway long enough for a large military aircraft. Both local residents and international observers have described it as a Chinese military facility in disguise. On Cambodian social media, young people have repeatedly called it a symbol of China's land grabs. From 2023 to 2025, local residents protested several times against the Dakar Sakor project. They highlighted how land was fenced off, forests cleared, and fishing areas lost, which destroyed their livelihoods. Reports from March revealed that the replacement land provided as compensation was often barren, without access to water, leaving many residents jobless and families in debt. A 60-year-old fisherman spoke out publicly saying, "They promise us new houses and jobs, but now everything is ruined. We have lost the sea." In Sihanoukville, the so-called Chinatown area gained a reputation as a center for scams. Between 2016 and 2020, more than 100 Chinese-operated casinos and hotels sprang up. Once a nationwide gambling ban took effect in 2020, many of these sites shifted to scam parks run by Chinese gangs, where activities included pig butchering frauds and human trafficking. Chinese firms such as China Huaneng and China Power have also constructed numerous dams and hydropower facilities along the Mekong River. These projects stand accused of worsening ecological problems downstream in Vietnam and Thailand, sparking broader public anger. The dams have forced the relocation of tens of thousands of indigenous people and crippled the fishing industry. Fish stocks in the Mekong have fallen by 70%, while flooding and droughts have grown more severe, leading to major environmental harm. From 2023 to 2025, villagers in Ko Kong and Preah Vihear provinces blocked roads time and again to protest. They pointed to ecological damage from the dams, contaminated drinking water, and salinized farmland. Local fishermen have said, "Chinese companies have ruined our river, and now our children have no fish to eat." Beyond the environmental and social damage, these Chinese-led initiatives have deepened Cambodia's debt burden, fueling discontent even among government officials. Several from the Ministry of Economy and the Ministry of Finance have told media outlets privately that the projects suffer from high failure rates. Some airports and roads see little use, adding to the country's heavy financial load. In 2024, the Funan Techo Canal project was estimated at $1.7 billion. The Cambodian government often stated that China would cover the funding, but Beijing never publicly confirmed this and reportedly expressed private frustration with Phnom Penh for making such claims independently. This situation left some officials concerned that the project could stall. In 2025, the government under Prime Minister Hun Manet chose to pause taking on new loans from China and instead sought financing from Japan, the US, and the World Bank. On Cambodian social media, users frequently posted sentiments such as, "Chinese debt makes us slaves," and "We'd rather have US aid than Chinese loans." These accumulated challenges have driven a strong public push towards closer US-Cambodia ties this year. Many in Cambodia now see the US as a preferable partner, looking to tackle scam operations, ease reliance on Chinese borrowing, and secure more straightforward assistance through the expanded bilateral cooperation. The Export-Import Bank of the U.S. is considering a $1 billion low-interest loan to Cambodia for buying U.S. weapons or infrastructure projects. This step aims to offset China's Belt and Road Initiative. At the same time, the Ream Naval Base, China's key strategic hold in Cambodia, now confronts serious challenges and scrutiny. The base sits on a peninsula in Siam Bay, within Sihanoukville province in southeastern Cambodia. It guards the entry to the Gulf of Thailand and lies about 1,000 kilometers from the Strait of Malacca. Fully upgraded, it could host an aircraft carrier group, serving as a launch port for the Chinese Navy into the Indian Ocean and along the southern edge of the South China Sea. Built in the 1950s, the Ream Base fell into disuse during Cambodia's civil war. Following the 1970 coup, the British Royal Navy helped renovate it briefly, supplying fast patrol boats, floating dry docks, and improvements to the docks and maintenance facilities. But after the Khmer Rouge seized power in 1975, the base was abandoned again. From the 2010s onward, China steadily assumed control through what it presented as upgrade assistance. In July 2019, the Wall Street Journal reported that U.S. officials had uncovered a secret deal granting the Chinese PLA Navy exclusive rights to one-third of the Ream Naval Base for 30 years. Sam Rainsy, the former leader of Cambodia's opposition and last president at the Cambodia National Rescue Party, warned repeatedly from exile that Chinese access to the Ream Base threatened regional stability. He argued that the base, along with major Chinese projects like land reclamation, an airport, and a deep-water port in Koh Kong province, outlined Beijing's broader effort to militarize Cambodia's southwestern coastline. Those concerns proved accurate over time. In October 2020, Cambodia's Navy Vice Admiral confirmed publicly that China, through the China Metallurgical Group Corporation, was dredging waters around the Ream Base to handle larger vessels. In January 2022, satellite imagery from the Asia Maritime Transparency Initiative showed China's advanced shell-shaped dredgers operating near the base. Around the same time in September 2020, the Cambodian government demolished one of two tactical command towers built with U.S. aid and replaced it with new facilities funded by China. Yet in just 3 years, by November 2025, Cambodia's Ministry of Defense announced that U.S. warships would also gain access to the Ream Base moving forward. Rainsy's once marginal alerts have now shaped official government policy. Cambodia recognized the risks of deep Chinese military involvement, leading the Ream Base to evolve from exclusive Chinese use to shared access with the U.S. This shift has weakened China's regional ambitions while opening Cambodia to greater Western investment and market access. On the economic security front, the European Union plans to partially restore its everything-but-arms preferential tariff system in 2026. Japan, South Korea, and India have committed more than $1.5 billion in 2025 for infrastructure projects, including highways, light rail, and 5G networks. Apple is also assessing whether to move some production from Vietnam to Cambodia. At the same time, the U.S. and other international partners expect Cambodia to make progress on governance and security. They want the anti-corruption unit to function independently and prosecute at least 3 sitting provincial and ministerial officials by 2026. All previously secret bidding processes and loan agreements for major Chinese-funded projects must be made public. Cambodia is also urged to join the UN Convention Against Corruption's implementation mechanism and accept independent third-party audits. In the fight against transnational crime, Cambodia must close all scam centers in Sihanouk Nokville and Ko Kong provinces by 2026, ensure that major Chinese organizers are either repatriated or prosecuted, and end selective enforcement. The country is expected to set up a permanent joint office with the FBI and Interpol. On political openness and human rights, the government faces calls to allow moderate opposition parties to re-register, halt pressure on independent media and NGOs, and release a number of political prisoners who remain in detention. In November, the Prime Minister publicly pledged to make 2026 the year of anti-corruption in Cambodia. The success of this effort will play a key role in determining whether the country can fully distance itself from China's influence. Cambodia has shown through its recent steps that when it stands up to Beijing and makes clear gestures towards the West, it gains quick access to Western funding, markets, and military support. In 2020, work at the Ream Base focused on deepening channels for Chinese aircraft carriers. By 2025, Cambodia invited the U.S. military to visit as well. This goes beyond a routine change in foreign policy. It represents the first time in 38 years that Cambodia has gained real control over its own direction. For China, these developments have created gaps in its strategy around the South China Sea, undermined the Belt and Road Initiative, disrupted overseas criminal networks, and weakened the appeal of its development model. For Cambodia, the path forward now involves reducing reliance on Chinese ties. Loans from China come with strings attached, while U.S. partnerships bring direct investments and contracts. The benefits of each approach have become evident. The broader geopolitical dynamics in the region will evolve over time. Observers should continue to watch how U.S.-Cambodia relations progress and how China adjusts its stance.